Hello Chemistry, Celeste here with a screencastify of our presentation for this week. I thought that would be easier. You could pause it as needed and maybe even speed up the video if you like to. So we did the first 13 or 12 slides today, so I'm going to start at slide 13. And this goes along with number 17 on your notes. So the gold foil experiment, we talked about this experiment last week, no, a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago before the break, when we were looking at how scientists discovered the nucleus. So again, this was kind of just going back to that. In the early 1900s, Geiger and Marsden performed an experiment where the beam of particles generated by the decay of an even more radioactive element than we just spoke about, called radium. Actually, I have a little card here. I went to a resort in Canada where the water has radium in it. So it used to be a health spa, and now it's just a hot springs. But anyways, it was dedicated or directed at a thin sheet of gold foil. So this is that gold foil experiment. Most of the particles released by the radium passed through the gold foil, but a few were deflected back. So this is kind of a drawing about that. Let me grab my pointer. So the experiment yielded a couple of conclusions. The first conclusion, that atoms are mostly empty space and that they have a dense inner nucleus. Okay, and so we're on number 18 now. So the nucleus of the atom, as you know, we've talked about this, so I kind of skipped over that in the notes. But you know, it has protons, neutrons, and electrons. So if you're not familiar with this yet, please get familiar with that. Isotopes we spoke about last week, and we're down to number 20 now. They are atoms of the same element with different numbers of neutrons and different atomic masses. So some of you guys still, make sure you're clear that isotopes have different neutrons, but they have the same number of protons, right? So this is how you would write, there's 3 ways to write isotope. Right here, and we did a worksheet last week kind of going over that too. So this is your answer for number, I'm just getting there on my other computer, 20, okay? Or 21 too. So nuclear fission is the next section, and that goes along with number 22. This is when atoms with very large nuclei can be split into smaller atoms when they're hit with protons or neutrons. So it releases a lot of energy as well as individual neutrons. So this is kind of a graphic about what's happening here. Notice they're splitting into, I don't know if I can make this a little lower for you, splitting into barium, and let me move my picture, and krypton here too. Okay, and then some neutrons getting split around too. I'm going to move my picture back down so it's not on the words there. All right. So when enough of these large atoms are clustered together, a fission chain reaction will occur as released neutrons trigger fission in neighboring atoms, eventually traveling through the entire sample of them. So this is kind of the primary source of energy behind nuclear bombs and nuclear reactors, and this is another image of it. It just keeps going and going and going, kind of a chain reaction. Moving my picture again. So you can see the first generation, second, third, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Okay. All right, for whatever reason, I can't make my picture any smaller. All right, so that's number 22. Nuclear testing is something that we have done in our country here, right? And other countries are doing it around the world. We're a little concerned about some countries doing it, right? So a 100-ton test was done in 1945. And so number 23 is asking about the purpose of it. So 108 tons of TNT were stacked and threaded with radioactive materials and detonated in New Mexico. So this explosion was meant to calibrate instruments that would measure actual nuclear bombs to be tested later. So this is what you would put for your answer for number 23. Okay, interestingly enough, they found green glass, radioactive green glass, in the desert after the explosion, and they call that trinitite. So if you ever go to the White Sands in New Mexico, maybe you'll find some too. Okay, on to 25. So fission bombs like Trinity had three components. There's a critical mass, like a cluster of fuel, so often uranium or plutonium, with enough concentration of neutrons to sustain a fission reaction, that chain reaction that happens. You need a neutron generator that generates the initial neutrons needed to start the reaction, and a bullet that's released at a certain altitude before impact with the ground to trigger that neutron generator. So this is kind of a drawing of that bomb. All right, and that's 25. Two atomic bombs, as you probably know, were dropped during World War II over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, and each had yields of 15 to 21 kilotons of TNT. And here's a picture of after. So after World War II, we decided it would be a good idea, we thought, to test additional nuclear weapons to the Marshall Islands, or called the Bikini Atoll, in the Pacific. All right, so here's Hawaii, and the Marshall Islands are over here. And there is a large chain of islands over here too. It's in Micronesia. So there was quite a bit of Marshallese people that lived in Hawaii right here too. So they have some direct history with this testing. So the testing was codenamed Operation Crossroads. So two nuclear devices were detonated at sea as part of this Crossroads operation, and the purpose was to study the effects of a nuclear blast on naval ships. So there was 4 lab animals that were placed on several ships to test for radiation sickness and burns. Poor guys, poor animals. And the first blast, called Shot Able, was dropped from a plane. The second, Shot Baker, was detonated underwater beneath the ships. A third blast was planned but canceled due to the damage caused by Shot Baker. All right, and so we're now on to 28A. You should have just been able to answer. Okay. Let me move this up a little bit too. There. Glenn Seaborg, he was chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission. He called the Baker incident or test the world's first nuclear disaster because there was a lot of contamination from radioactive fallout. So here's your definition of that. And we are on to number 30. Radioactive fallout is radioactive material that's propelled into the atmosphere after a nuclear blast. So this is the fact that it falls out of the sky, and here's a diagram for that too, so you can kind of see that mushroom cloud. And this fallout was spread across a large part of the ocean, including naval ships too. So this was first big disaster that we know of. I don't know why they didn't talk about the disaster in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but they didn't. Maybe because it didn't directly affect us. So here's a couple of kind of effects of radioactive fallout. Let me move my picture so you can. Okay, so radiation sickness is some symptoms, different symptoms that occur after exposure. So, of course, skin blistering, but vomiting, diarrhea, cancer, and death. And the severity depends on the dose, right, or the amount of exposure, how you were exposed, and whether it was acute, a single incident, or a long-term low-level exposure. So you'll look a little bit more at this type of thing too, or think about it at least, when you look at the cockroaches and Mythbusters assignment. So there's actually a question about this. So you have to determine if it's an acute exposure or chronic exposure for the cockroaches. So you may need to refer back to this. All right, we're on nuclear fusion now. So these early bombs were considered not very efficient, and here's why, and that is going to be number 33. There was less than 2% of uranium actually undergoing fission. And hydrogen bombs included a chamber of hydrogen gas wrapped with the plutonium-239 fuel. Okay, so here's kind of an example of that. So not very much was undergoing that fission reaction. Maybe a good thing in our case, right? Because think about how disastrous it would be if it did all undergo fission. All right, and then nuclear fusion. Let me move my picture back. Maybe up here. Nuclear fusion is a reaction where two smaller atoms, usually hydrogen, join together to form a larger one, and this releases heat and particles like neutrons and protons. Okay. So nuclear fusion is a reaction that powers stars and requires a tremendous amount of heat to occur. Okay, so we are on to 35. Actually, let me go back. See if I can go back. So here's kind of what's happening in the fusion. So 34 was asking how they were different, and that was in the previous slide, or right here actually in this slide. And nuclear fusion, just a little bit more information. This is what's happening in our closest star. Okay, we're on to 36. Castle Bravo. Oh my gosh, my picture is just getting in the way. Sorry about that. So the United States tested its first hydrogen bomb in 1954, codenamed Castle Bravo, and it was more powerful than expected and produced a tremendous amount of fallout. So residents in nearby atolls and Japanese fishermen, called the Lucky Dragon 5, were also caught here. So this is the fallout pattern right here too. So in 1963, United States, Soviet Union, UK signed a partial test ban, agreeing to ban all future nuclear tests except for those conducted underground. So pretty soon, this whole program was going to move underground. So we're on to 38. So as the Bikini nuclear testing continued, Dwight Eisenhower gave a famous speech. He said, "The United States pledges before you its determination to help solve the fearful atomic dilemma, to devote its entire heart and mind to find the way by which miraculous inventiveness of man shall not be dedicated to his death, but consecrated to his life." So that's called Atoms for Peace. So nuclear technology and research was provided to schools, hospitals, research institutions, and helped develop nuclear reactors that were used for power and for medical treatments. So that was 38. Kind of moved in another direction with our nuclear kind of plan. And then Lewis Strauss, you may recognize his last name, Levi Strauss family, chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, predicted that with nuclear power, our children will enjoy in their homes electrical energy too cheap to meter. Wow, sounds fabulous. So we're on to nuclear reactors and number 39. And we're getting there. You guys are doing great. Hang in there. So nuclear reactors work by taking the heat energy released by nuclear fission and converting it between many different forms. So here's a diagram, a simple diagram of that. The steam generator, a turbine, a generator, and a cooling tower. So you can take a look at that. And so on 39, you're going to write the descriptions, including these control rods and moderators as well. So both of these vessels are housed in a special containment building made of layers of concrete and steel, and this prevents escape of all forms of radioactive decay, hopefully. So the answer is number 40. Nuclear power plants, when operating properly, do not release any air or water pollution, fallout, or radiation. So there, you guys have all seen The Simpsons, right? Yeah. So So here, a cooling tower in Byron, Illinois, right? Maybe this is near where The Simpsons was based on, right? How'd you like that in your backyard? As long as things are going good, it's okay. Um, all right. So through the 1970s, many new nuclear reactors